Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to brand new TAT Pod. Today we have something very different. We've got a transfer reaction podcast for you guys. We have a special guest on the podcast from Teams Like Brighton. And essentially what we're going to do is talk all things Alexis Mac Allister, all the updates that we've had today. And just give you guys a bit of an insight on the player that we are going to be getting. From somebody who's watched him week in, week out as well. But first of all, I'll start by introducing Mike. How are you, mate? You're back on the pod again. You're on a roll now, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I'm becoming a regular at this point. How long may it continue? I've got a better track record than Naby and Ox, so
Hey, listen, mate. You know I'll touch like over Naby Kai, so you need to behave yourself.
Yeah.
And then we have our guest, which is Tom Phillips from Teams Like Brighton podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you guys?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been a lot of this is taking forever kind of thing on social media, and it's still, we just had a brief chat off air, and I'm probably going to get you to repeat what you said to me just a little bit later on. But as far as we're concerned, this is over the line, and that's what we've been told from very reliable people. So that's what we're going to run with from our end at least. And like I say, we're all happy about it. It's a player that we've been told about for a while now, and it's a player that I'm pretty sure 99.9% of Liverpool supporters are all absolutely buzzing for. So, that's where we're at. But then we're getting some comments before we get stuck into it. Footy Boy, big up yourself, mate. Hamza, how are you doing? Mac 10, hello, Ben, Mac, and Tom. Big up TAT, hello, Hamza, and hello. Saying hello to each other. Lovely stuff. You love to see that, don't you? Sometimes in comments, you see people arguing with each other and fighting back and forth. But let's get straight into it. Let's get the updates that we had today straight off the bat before I come to you. We got this, aka, so Tom knows, the Paul Joyce dagger. This is Paul Joyce put out an article. Liverpool aiming to sign Brighton's Alexis Mac Allister this week. This was at 9:45, and then Fabrizio Romano later on at 11 o'clock, he tweeted those magic words. Here we go. Full agreement completed on the contract. Understand it will be valid until 2028. 5-year deal. Liverpool will pay the buyout clause in the next days, way less than the reported 60 million fee. Medical tests in 24 to 48 hours. Done, he says. Straight off the bat, we'll go with Mike first of all, because, we need to get our thoughts before we go to the expert, of course. How are you feeling about this, mate? I mean, this is a player, it feels like we've spoken about on podcasts now for a long, long time. It seems like it's edging closer and closer and closer, and it's just a matter of a couple of formalities for club announcement. Yeah. How do you feel?
Well, we were saying off air about, how we're all scarred by Nabil Fekir, right? And we thought that was all through, and we were getting ready to see the interviews, buy the T-shirts. Thankfully, I don't think Mac Allister has such an injury track record, so I'm not concerned about the medical. It is just ironing out a few
issues. Until he joins Liverpool, at least, then he will get injured. Yeah. I hope you know that. Yeah.
Well, the moment he gets in touch with our medical department, 3 games a season, but it's all right. No, I'm very excited. Obviously, Tom's going to be able to tell us a lot more, but from the outside looking in, he seems like a quality player. He seems like a player that's almost undervalued by parts of the Prem. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited, and I'm actually really excited to pick Tom's brain because I've got a million and one questions for you, mate. To be honest.
I look forward to hearing them.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, kick us off, mate. Obviously, Brighton fan, lifelong, it sounds like, from what you were telling us earlier about some of your experiences. And we were talking about Europa League just briefly off here. This is a player that you've seen sort of develop from a boy to a man kind of thing. You signed him and loaned him out twice, I believe.
Yes.
To 2 different clubs in Argentina. So if it is to all go ahead, mate, and he does leave the club, what sort of player are Brighton losing here?
Easily part of our spine for us. He's been so crucial to us in terms of how De Zerbi plays. I'm sure if some have been able to enjoy the highlights and some of the passages on social media under us, guided by the Italian, you'd see that really you get glimpses of how crucial that midfield is. And the duo of Moises Caicedo, like that ball-winning midfielder, and then Alexis Mac Allister kind of carrying that ball forward, start those attacks from the centre. You could see that how instrumental, and they just work so well. And De Zerbi's made it no secret in the past that we're expecting to see both Caicedo and Mac Allister go, which is heartbreaking. But for many Brighton fans, we kind of expected it during the World Cup, even before it, when we got that sort of new contract, because we just felt like that was just business from Tony Bloom and Paul Barr's end. But look, you guys are getting one hell of a player, I think, and someone that I think is really going to be a piece to really solve the puzzle and the dilemma that is Liverpool's midfield at the moment, if we go by what we've seen this season over at Anfield.
Yeah. No, 100%, and it is a signing which is definitely needed. You've hit the nail on the head, mate. The midfield's just not really been existent at all. And we look at teams like Brighton, who, of course, at the start of the season, I don't think anybody had them down to finish in the top. Did you finish 5th in the end?
We finished 5th.
Yeah,
I
didn't know which way it was. I've not looked at the league table in a long time. But obviously you finished 6th. So nobody had them down for that. And it's like, when you look at a team like Brighton, and obviously, I say this with massive respect because you've done incredible over the last 2 seasons, but it's like, how can Brighton have a midfield that is like on a different level to ours? It makes no sense. And of course, we were speaking about your recruitment team, and obviously it's down to them and the job that they've done, doing the hard work for teams like us, sort of lazy teams that would just, Brighton will get the next big thing, we'll go and slap some money down and take it from them. But it's crazy that you've got that duo, which pretty much, I think, at least Caicedo, Mac Allister, maybe not so much so, but those two potentially walk into pretty much the majority of Premier League clubs, or maybe even Mac Allister as well. But I feel like more teams are probably crying out for a Caicedo nowadays. But just before we go back to Mike, you touched on it just then. He signed a new deal, didn't he, before the World Cup? And obviously that's the deal that has all these sort of clauses in, and the release clause. And of course today, Twitter, and especially on our end, has kind of blown up at the fact that people have now found out that the clause is 45 million or less than. Do you just want to briefly touch on what you was telling us off air, and how there's still probably going to be other clauses added into that to make this deal go ahead?
Yeah, of course. So I think what has to be clear on this is that there isn't particularly a release clause per se that you and I are casually used to whenever we play FIFA and Manager or in previous transfer stories. What we have, David Ornstein pre-reported on this a while back at The Athletic, is that there is a release mechanism in place. From my understanding, the contract negotiations went ahead just before the World Cup. Mac Allister made it clear that he would like some sort of a release clause in place so that he could go to of a high stature, was the line I was delivered anyway. And the club were very reluctant. Bloom and Barber don't like to put a straight fee in. There has to be something else in place, just so that there is almost a kind of like an interest in the transfer going forward. So there are quite a few clauses in place. They are complex. They're not as simple as, as we discussed in the past, about appearance fees or winning trophies. That they are very much a mechanism. Tony Bloom is a mathematician. He loves his stats. He loves his data. That's driven our recruitment in the past. So I understand from it, yes, the 40 to 45 million pounds is sort of like the flat fee to start these negotiations. And I believe up to 4 clubs have actually tried to meet that. The only team that Mac Allister is actually interested in joining is Liverpool. So I think that's the only reason why Liverpool have been in this for so long. He's made it very clear in the past. His dad, Carlos Mac Allister, who played over at Argentinos Juniors and Boca Juniors as well, back in his playing days. Yeah. There was only ever been that one discussion, that one team, and that was Liverpool.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry, Ben. Just why do you think Liverpool was the choice? Because from outside looking in, I've seen, there's supposedly been interest from a lot of different clubs. There's been interest from, way back in December, there was links to Tottenham. There's been links to United, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, abroad to Spain. I say Tottenham, Ben probably chuckles under his breath. But
I was laughing at United, to be fair, because we've done it again, but carry on.
Don't worry, I'm off at Tottenham.
Mate, listen, my mum supports Tottenham. Trust me, I've seen enough disappointment in this household. So why do you think that Liverpool was the chosen destination? Do you think that is his father thinking this is a stepping stone? Because I'm not discrediting my own club when I say that, but I've seen enough players from South America, including, Suarez, very close to my heart, and not necessarily use Liverpool as a stepping stone, but not see Liverpool as their final destination. They see Madrid and Barcelona and go, that's where I want to be. Do you think Mac Allister is one of them, or do you think Mac Allister wants to see the Premier League as his main area? Bit of a loaded question, but
it is. But the simple answer to that is that that's not Mac Allister's thinking at all. I think that's something that is definitely within his team, but he's very much a guy who is dedicated to the club that he plays for right now. There were talks of him leaving in January, but he quashed those very quickly, saying, Brighton have done so much for me. I really appreciate them. I don't want to finish as I am right now. I want really push on. And behind closed doors, I think he made it clear that he wanted to make sure this club gets Europe. De Zerbi was very passionate, and it was very much, I think if Potter was the manager in January, Mac Allister would have gone. I genuinely believe that. Yeah, genuinely believe that. De Zerbi is someone that Potter laid the foundation of how this club has been playing. De Zerbi is that guy that's got that mental and that mental capacity to really just put that arm around the shoulder and just say, push on, I believe in you. And you could just look at the case study, what he's done with Solly March. He's just unleashed an absolute animal in him. And if it wasn't for his injury, he would be in the England squad right now. And I know I say that through rose-tinted glasses, but look, I digress. Mac Allister, Mac Allister is someone that wants to be somewhere for long term, and he's done that a fair bit for Brighton. Yes, he spent the first year, 18 months on loan, but he had to for work permit reasons.
Of course.
Since then, he's been very committed to us. He's loved by the fans. I mean, the guy stops outside the training ground and just shows off his World Cup medal. He has it in his glove compartment in his car, for God's sake.
I mean, I'm doing the same, to be fair, mate.
I think many of us would. He's the only World Cup winner we've ever had in the club's history, and I believe he was sixth, if memory serves me right, from my very, very quick brief research this morning. But I think the main thing he wanted was he wanted to play his kind of way, and he wanted a style to suit that. It worked under Potter, it worked under De Zerbi, and really, when I look at the options that he had, Liverpool made the most sense. You've got an aging midfield, you've got gaps in there that he can really fill very, very quickly and with ease. And I don't think he'll be a stranger to the gegenpressing style that Klopp likes to deploy. I don't think it's going to be a very hard time to gel. I think he's going to fit in very quickly. And the fact that you've got this done so early on with a full pre-season under his belt, come that first match, he's going to be looking like as if he's been there for, 5 years.
Yeah, Tom, can I ask you about that? Because that was one of my questions a bit further down the line. I saw a couple of Brighton fans today talking about him. A couple of people said that there was a little bit of a settling in period when he did finally get to be able to play for you guys. He needed a bit more. I think they were getting at maybe some support from within the club, like teammates, and just kind of like maybe managed a bit. So from what you're saying now, do you think that's not going to be a problem for us? He's sort of at that phase in his career where he could go to a team like Liverpool or Man City and just sort of, okay, I'm here now. I've got the shirt. I'm going to start games and everything will be fine. Or, like you just said, do you think there could still be a bit of a settling in period? Because we've made big signings before, and Klopp hasn't always just, okay, now go and play.
Look, I think the main thing you really need to take into account is that, there had to be a bit of a brief settle-in period, but this guy's from Argentina. He's managed to get himself back over to England, and then all of a sudden lockdown happens. So there were a lot of environmental factors beyond his control that really hampered that development. I wouldn't say now, I mean, you look back on it, like when he made his debut, I believe he was 21, 22, which is very young. Now that he's matured, he's 24 years old. He is a commanding presence in the dressing room. So his mentality and sort of his mental attributes has gone from down here and they've climbed up to there. And there's solid foundation there. And that's down to the strong characters he's had under Potter. He's down to strong characters he's had under De Zerbi. And I think that he's now kind of like broadened himself up, and he's kind of understood the demand of not just Premier League football, but England altogether. It's a culture shock for him. Even though that he's got family relations up in Scotland, I don't think he's really had that kind of like big sense of commuting up to Glasgow every now and then.
Yeah, of course.
So he's now familiar with the atmosphere. Now he Argentinian international. He was a regular in the World Cup. One thing I wanted to point out was the fact that the one game that he didn't play, they lost. He was, and Argentine midfield was anonymous in that match as well, I hasten to add. This is a guy that will fit in very quickly. And, this is a guy that's probably going to be sung the praises from Adam Lallana, a guy who actually was his mentor at the club as well, because they wanted to play both a similar role, and Lallana just got teach him, and Mac Allister got told to learn from Lallana, because Lallana's Adam Lallana. I don't need to tell you guys, so you know about Lallana more than I do, really.
Well, Tom, I'll ask you this. So when I think of Adam Lallana, for example, you talk about mentoring. The one thing about Adam Lallana, that in his final year, specifically with Liverpool, he played in 3 different positions. He played as a 6 and an 8 and a 10. Now, the reason for that was very much he was filling slots. Now, with Mac Allister, I've seen a lot of talk about this, where, okay, you can play as a 6, he can play an 8, plays an 8, play as a 10. I don't see him as a 10, I see him as more of an 8, even though I do think we'll probably give him the number 10 shirt. For you, in terms of what you've seen at Brighton, especially over the last 12 months, how does he fare in each of the roles? How does he fare in a 6? How does he fare in an 8? How does he fare in a 10? And in your mindset, when you look at this Liverpool side, where do you think he'd be best suited to play for us?
I'll answer that last question, and it's very simple. He is a number 8, I think, in that Jurgen Klopp midfield 3. I think it's important to know what is Alexis Mac Allister's style of play. He's very much an attacking-minded midfielder. When he was at Argentina's juniors, he was more of a number 10. He played an attacking midfield role for that club. And then when he had another loan spell over at Boca Juniors, he was deployed more on the left wing and played in sort of like a more playmaker role. So he had very much attacking attributes there. That was no secret. When Boca got told that his loan spell would be cut short early because he qualified for a work permit, fans were devastated. And from memory, they went on for a pretty poor run of form as well, because of the influence that he had, because he controlled the midfield and in the centre whenever he got deployed in the middle, and he was very influential on the wing as well. When he came to us, Potter was tinkering, and I think that's another thing as well that came into why he took so long to settle in with us, is the fact that Potter was still trying to find some momentum and some understanding in terms of the style of play we really wanted to start playing. So he was kind of in that transition period, that transition season under Potter, which didn't help matters. But now, after seeing him, when you see him line up, and it really annoys me when sites like Transfer Marks put him down as a defensive midfielder. He's not, because when you see him play, you know he's not like that. He sits in that 2 in the typical 4-2-3-1 formation, yes, but when he gets that ball, he is going to be pushing forward. He's going to be looking for that pass down the channels. He's going to be looking to support your wingers. He's going to be looking to create an opening for himself so that there's a space to draw the defenders out, so that there's an opening there. I think that's something that Salah is going to really, really appreciate more than anything, because he sometimes gets double teamed or even triple teamed. But if Mac Allister is coming into that little pocket of space and draws out one of those defenders, Salah all of a sudden is going to have a much easier shift. And I think we could actually see another really, really good season from the Egyptian because of what Mac Allister does off the ball. In terms of the 6, yes, he can play there and he can be all right. I wouldn't say that that's something that Klopp would want to put in unless, Fabinho's got another bad injury. And
well, hopefully we'll sign someone. So, let's not even...
Exactly. And you're back up to Fabinho, hopefully, that you sign as well. Again, another piece of the jigsaw that you need filling. Doesn't get a nasty injury or suspension either. He will be your number 8. I see him... For Liverpool fans that don't really understand what Mac Allister is all about, I see him in Oxlade-Chamberlain's first season at Liverpool, when he was just something else for me. I thought he was fantastic. And if it wasn't for that knee injury against City in the Champions League...
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
We won't be talking about, Oxlade-Chamberlain getting released. He'll be there for another 5 years, sadly. But that's kind of like the like-for-like comparison that I can give you as Liverpool fans. He's got a great eye for goal. He's got a good eye for the balls that need to be pings up to the opposite channels. To
this question wings.
Here. Great question. I wouldn't say so. I think we could. I like to see potentially Mac Allister and Thiago playing together. Thiago is very much more of a, I would see, as a playmaker, more of that number 10 role that we talk about. Whereas Mac Allister's he's a box to box midfielder in layman's terms here. It's hard for me to really kind of like describe it. All I have to
I feel
say
like
is
he just kind of keeps things ticking over. Like he just does the basics, but he does the basics incredibly well.
Yeah,
I'm sure many of your viewers here will talk about, if you watch that Argentina Saudi Arabia match.
Yeah.
The first thing that I always thought is that midfield is anonymous. They had two men in that midfield and they were crowded every single time. It just wasn't working out for them. And then when you watch them again in the other two group stage matches, they were formidable. They were phenomenal. You really saw the glimpses of why they were the favourites and the eventual winners. The difference to that is Alexis Mac Allister, because whenever there is a job that needs to be done and no one else can do it, Mac Allister's got you covered for it. Whether that's making those channel runs, whether that's making those passes, or if it's sweeping and helping out in that midfield, because what your number 6 is has gone for a tackle and is now left that open space up. He will back you up on that. And I think that's what Klopp sees. And I think that's what Liverpool can expect from Mac Allister.
Okay. Ben, do you have a next question?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, before we carry on, guys, there is 39 of you in here right now. And let's just get a quick like check. We may need to get some more likes, guys. We are currently on 17, so that means pretty much more than half of you guys haven't liked it. Please smash a like, guys. This is top. If Tom wasn't on here, me and Mike would be giving you a very, very basic idea of what Mac Allister will bring us, because we've both seen him. I've seen Mac Allister a few times in person. I was at the Amex when you knocked us out the cup this season. I was at the 2-2 draw last season when I thought, you know what, half time we're going to batter you. We get a couple players go off and all of a sudden you get back in the game. I've seen Mac Allister in the flesh, and he was a brilliant player, and I've always thought that. But if Tom wasn't on here, we wouldn't be able to give you all this insight, guys. So please make sure you smash the like button before we continue. But Mike, I'm just going to ask you a question, mate, before we go back to Tom. Give Tom a little bit of a breather. After hearing all this stuff, mate, about his ability and how he is as a person and as a player, of course, there might be a bit of a flaw in that price tag that we've seen. There's obviously going to be some sort of add-ons, you'd think, and incentives and all of that kind of stuff. But, how excited are you now, mate, to see this guy in action, for the first time in pre-season in a Liverpool shirt? Is this something that's really getting you excited for the season ahead?
Yeah, no, massively. I think what's interesting about what Tom said there, just in terms of like perception-wise, I mean, listen, I'm never going to pretend I have more knowledge than I do, which unfortunately contradicts what a lot of people do on Twitter. When I see Mac Allister, when I see Mac Allister, when I've seen him play, I think he's very versatile. I do think he's technically very good. I think, I talk about his composure on the ball. He's incredibly press resistant as well. I'm sure obviously Tom can vouch for that. I think what's interesting there is when you speak about his best position, you mention how you see him as an 8. You see him probably on the right side of the 3, maybe the left, but you see him as an 8. I assume you said right side of the 3 because you're talking about freeing up Salah, which the reason I find that interesting is because when you look at the conversation that's taken place around him, a lot of people speak of him as a 10, not just because of the shirt number that you might get, but they speak of him as a 10. They compare him to other 10s. Now, what I worry about, in a sense, is the fickle side of any fan base will jump on this, Liverpool fans specifically. And I'm worried that potentially those who don't know Mac Allister very well may have the wrong aspirations for him. So for me, when I look at Mac Allister, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I see a player that can create chances, but he is effective in the final third, but not necessarily the player that I'm going to be expecting to get 10 goals, 10 assists every season, unless it's from the penalties. I know he scored goals for you this season, but I've looked at his stats. Half of them are from pens. All right, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's a great penalty taker. God knows we could have done without this.
He'll be fighting with Mo Salah for that spot, I'll tell you that much.
Are you sure? I don't know, man.
Did you see the Mo Salah's penalties this season? Exactly, that's what I'm saying. He's going to come in and he's like, you know what? I can take him better than this guy. But
well, exactly. So my query is, I suppose, not even query. My worry is that if he doesn't necessarily match the stats, stats tell a story, but of like maybe an Odegaard or a Bruno after a season or two, people have the wrong perception of him. And then they'll be like, oh, maybe he didn't, is he really a success if he doesn't get this? So, Tom, I suppose what I'm trying to sort of get to is, can you flesh out more what we should expect from him as an 8? So never mind the 10, never mind the 6, But what should we really expect from him as an 8? Sort of not, focus us up on what we should expect, ignoring what people are running narrative-wise on Twitter and socials.
Yeah, sure. And I actually just been reading the comments, and one of the guys on there probably said it a bit spot on there. He said more of a technically gifted Henderson.
That's a trigger word in this fan base.
I know it's a trigger word. But look, I think that's the best way I could really explain it in like layman's terms. But yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's kind of like the way I was going about it. Look, he is a number 8. He's a box-to-box midfielder. Look, if a team's counter-attacking against you from a corner kick, I guarantee you the first person that's going to start sprinting is it going to be Van Dijk? Is it going to be Salah? It's going to be Mac Allister, and he's going to be closing in on that player. He's going to be a guy that makes sure that the defense is supported whenever you've been pushed into your final third, and the opposition are going to be attacking from the left or for the right. He's going to be there dictating from the midfield, putting them in the positions. He's not afraid to shout at people as well. He's not afraid to have a go at his own teammates. He's not afraid to defend himself either. So it'll be really interesting to see what's going to happen in that midfield. I think he's a character for sure. He's going to be a voice that's going to be heard in that dressing room. And he's not afraid to tell people where they're in the wrong or not. That's something that I've noticed, particularly towards the end of this season, when things weren't going right for us. Him and Pascal Gross were the first people to have a go at other people besides Lewis Dunk. Dunk's the first one to go as the captain, and then after that it's Gross and Mac Allister, because they've got the standard there. And I think that's something that you're going to expect with Mac Allister. He knows the standard, he knows what's at stake, and he knows exactly what the expectation is, and that's going to be top 4 at the absolute minimum for Liverpool next season. And that's something that's going to be instilled in him from day one. If reports are correct that the 30-minute phone call with Jurgen Klopp influenced him to secure that he's going to be there, I'll tell you right now that the conversation is going to be, I want Champions League, and Mac Allister would have just said, and you'll get it with me, because he's someone that's going to be, he's an athlete. He's not, I wouldn't say if you're expecting someone to be of South American flair, to be that number 10, I'm telling you right now, he's not that. What I am saying is that he's attacking minded. He will contribute on those attacks. He will produce moments of absolute pure brilliance. To this day, I know that we got goal of the season with Enciso, but the fact that Mwepu's shoelace was offside against Leicester City, that goal was just absolutely sensational. Yeah, I've never jumped over seats before in my life, but I did when I saw that going. What a goal!
Can I? Sorry,
go for it.
No, I was going to say about just you alluded to it there, the South American stuff. I think that's always something that we've looked at when we make signings. You kind of see, okay, we've got this player, we've got this group of players, who can we add to it? So recently, obviously, we got Gakpo, who is very close to Virgil van Dijk. We've brought in a few South Americans, and I just feel like we've spoken about the settling in period and all of that stuff. I feel like he's just going to be fine here because we've got Alisson, we've got Fabinho, we've got Nunes, we've got Luis Diaz, we've even got Thiago, who's obviously Spanish speaker. And by the way, Mac Allister's English is absolutely brilliant anyway, so it's not really a problem. As for Darwin Nunes, for example, he's come in, doesn't speak a word of English, still doesn't, bless him. But yeah, Mac Allister, there's not that sort of stepping stone for him. He's just going to be able to, okay, Gaffer, what do you want from me? And sort of kick on. And in terms of like that sort of friendship group, I have no doubts that he's just going to come in and fit in straight away. But yeah, I mean, Mike, did you have anything else to add to that?
Oh, gee, listen, Tom, I could pick your brain all night, man. I promise I won't, but I really could. So, listen, we talked about Mac Allister a fair bit, but I do want to just touch on one or two of your other players, because when I look at Brighton, you can cast your mind. I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to press it. I'm going to say you're probably similar age to myself. So if you cast your mind back when Southampton first came up, right, and you had that front lot of, you had Lallana, you had Lambert, you had Luke Shaw coming through, you had Van Dijk not long after. You had this really young, exciting team that had an incredible recruitment strategy, right? Now, a lot of people looked at that team and they went, phenomenal recruitment strategy, but it's not sustainable, right? And then over the years, they just slowly deteriorated, so on and so forth, went away. There have been other teams that have came through and had similar sort of momentum, and then they faltered. What stands Brighton apart from that?
I love that comparison. I love it because I just eat it up every time.
Listen, it was easy bait for you. Go on.
Southampton was actually a massive case study for Brighton when Tony Bloom came in. Look, our owner Tony Bloom is Brighton through and through, and is someone that his family have been involved with for generations. Okay, I think for as long as the club have been about, since 1901, there's always been a Bloom family member on the board. With Bloom, he's invested in the stadium, he's invested in our new training centre, and the main thing he always wanted was to be, almost self-sustainable, bringing young products rather than relying on the transfer market as much as most teams do. Southampton was a fantastic case study for that. They had a great recruitment team at the time, a really good chief scout and a really good scouting network. And once they left, it all fell apart. And you could really see that going forward since, I would say, a year or two after they got Europe.
Yeah.
The last time anyway, the last season they were in Europe, you started to see signs of them deteriorating. They weren't replacing like for like, or certainly improvement. They were stagnating for a fair bit. We're not like that because we have plans A, B, C, D, E, F, G for every single scenario you could imagine. We saw that with Barber when Barber had that interview when Potter left for Chelsea, and he's admitted that there's already a plan in place if the hypothetical of De Zerbi leaving, because they didn't want to make sure they really wanted to make sure that no one is bigger than the club. So that's taking apart every single minute thing within the club. The recruiting is phenomenal. When Bloom bought us back in League One, we had 3 scouts to our name, just 3, as most League One clubs do. Now we have hundreds scattered across the continent, across the world, even, that don't necessarily go to matches and find someone they like. They get instructed: we need this player, we need that player, we need this kind of position or role. What have you got for us? That's how the mechanism works. And that's something that has stayed put. Look what's happened with what's his name? The guy that's Ashworth, who's gone to Newcastle. He was our technical manager, and when he was gone, Newcastle got a fantastic sign. That's probably their best signing since their takeover, really, in Dan Ashworth. He's responsible for so much in the FA. He's responsible for so much with the Albion in terms of what we needed to do to get from A to B and to where we are now. But the handover that Gordon Greer's been given now is been so smooth. And that's something that's...
Okay, Tom, sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Sorry, the reason I'm going to cut you off, because I know where you're going with it, and I agree. I think, Jesus, it sounds like a Liverpool fan being high in my ear, doesn't it? Really, I really fit the whole thing, like as if I know everything. I really don't. Listen, I agree with you. I do think you are different to Southampton. I think your recruitment strategy is second to none. And honest to God, I think you played the best football in the Premier this season. Not the second, not the third best. I thought you played the best football, specifically after you got the new manager in. I think my worry from the outside looking in, and it is the outside looking in, no one knows your club better than you, right? Is although it is sustainable to a point, all it takes is one bad window, one bad year, and all the hard work goes. So let's say hypothetical that isn't going to happen, but hypothetically, let's say this summer you lose. You've lost Mac Allister, most likely. You lose Caicedo. Let's say you lose Matoma, right? Matoma was one that enough people talk about for me. I think Matoma was one of the better forwards this season. I think he's exciting. I love his story in general. I do think he's got a very high ceiling. And I do think if he has another good season, he might be the next one out the door, right? So you then go, oh, well, it's fine. We've got Evan Ferguson. We've got Incensio. You've got the number 10 that I can't pronounce the name of. Very long, but you know who I'm on about, right? So you've got all these phenomenal players that come through. But then that's a lot of pressure to put on a teenager. It's a lot of pressure. Now, I believe Evan Ferguson can handle it. I believe Incensio's shown that he can handle it. But
try and pronounce his name. Go on, I dare you.
I'm not even going to try. You think I'm going to do that? What? I feel like Paul Merson. I feel like you ever seen that video of Paul Merson trying to say Mkhitaryan? That's how I feel. I don't have it in my locker. But you look at those players, and I think I've seen it in the past. I'm sure Ben has as well, where a team relies a bit too much on youth, and it can only last so long before either the young lads run out of legs, run out of confidence, and it all fall apart very quickly. Are you not worried about that at all? It depends what you consider failure, though, I suppose, at that point.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. What is failure? We've always aspired to be a top 10 club, and I don't think that's changed necessarily because we know we know the stakes of what's going to be next season. I've got no doubt that Pochettino is going to blitz through it with Chelsea. And I've got no doubt that Aston Villa are going to be pulling the strings again under Unai Emery. So it's going to be, I think next season is going to be a lot tougher for us. De Zerbi's made it very clear that we're not ready for 3 games a week. He made that very clear towards the end of the season when we got absolutely smashed by Everton, which to this day I'm forever going to work that out, and I'll never understand that.
My best mate's an Evertonian, right? And I was watching that game, and I was like, he genuinely might be like releasing in his pants at this point. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. If you had told me that this season we'd get smashed by you 3-0 and they'd beat you 6-1 or whatever, I'd throw the hat in. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't quite believe it.
They beat us on aggregate as well. I'm fuming at that. Look,
you're worried about the aggregate?
Yeah. That's the bit that really annoyed me when my mate said it. Look, it's so easy to go down that route of we're over reliant on youth. And, you talked about Matoma there. And again, I love this because no one really knows the players that we've got out on loan at the moment. And Simon Adingra is someone that has done absolute bits in the Belgian Pro League. He's got 30 goal involvements this season, goals and assists this season. He was so instrumental for them in their championship push. And again, they just missed out on the last game of the season in like the most agonizing way possible.
Incredible finish, though.
For them.
Incredible finish.
It was just the scenes for it is just ridiculous. Writers couldn't write that. And that's someone that we're really excited to bring in. He's definitely going to be someone who's going to give competition for Matoma. And I think at times Matoma was quite tired towards the end of the season. And he gets battled out more by fullbacks than your typical wing backs that you now see in the Premier League. When Serge Aurier was at the City ground, had him in his back pocket. Aaron Wan-Bissaka had him in his back pocket in both matches, even the one that we won when Mac Allister scored that last minute penalty, which is just justice for every single Fergie time moment I've ever had to watch on telly. So that was just that was just it was poetry.
And that, by the way, just to let you know, we kind of knew that we were more than likely. I think at this point, people were like sort of 70% sure he was going to come in. So to see him do that and then do that to the crowd, I just look from that moment. I think that was the moment where he's just like, yeah, this guy's the one for me. Like, you do that against United, you're welcome to join Liverpool for me.
Absolutely. And look, and you look at this guy's celebrations. He's passionate. He got his heart on his sleeve. He will give you everything on the pitch. And if he celebrates, he'll celebrate like a fan. So, and I think that's also something that's going to win the hearts of the cop as well. He's going to be a guy when you see him play and how he acts and reacts, you're just going to be like, he gets it. He gets the club. He gets it all. He will be respected very, very quickly, and I'm looking forward to the really creative chant that you're going to get for him.
I'm sure
we've already got one for one Mac Allister from a few years ago, so I'm sure we'll think of another one. Tom, just before I let you go, mate, because you're gonna me and Mike are going to talk about Liverpool for another 20-25 minutes. I don't want to keep you around for all of that. But just before you go, obviously we spoke a bit off air, and we're both in the same European competition next season, which is mad. Nobody would have seen that coming. So just tell us what that means to you, Brighton fans, to be in Europe. And is this your first time in a European competition?
Ever?
Yeah, okay, so there we go. So yeah, what does that mean to you, and sort of what are your kind of hopes? Are you kind of saying, yeah, let's go for it? Are you being a bit more, we're just happy to be here? Just tell us how it is amongst the Brighton fans at the minute, mate.
I think when you ask any Brighton, I think if you told Brighton fans they're going to get Europa League this season, I think they'll be picturing you in a straitjacket. When we went up, we thought, fantastic, we're going to get 3 years, 4 years max, and we're going to really enjoy it, and we might go down and we come back bigger and better. And every single season, we've either just stayed level pegging or we've just improved every single time. And the dream of and the talk of European football was a bit of a joke towards the start of the season. And then World Cup started, Mac Allister done well, Caicedo was doing bits, and we were like, we've got a team full of World Cup players here. And like influential World Cup players, not bench warmers. They're first teamers. This is insane. Then we saw the push in January and February, and we thought, here we go. We've got something going here. And when we look at some of the key moments, shall we say, involving VAR, that went against us, it kind of like thought this is criminal, but and we all thought, oh, this is such a Brighton way for it to finish. Like we're going to miss out on Europe because VAR didn't go our way. And, you know, we're the Brighton Twitter going mad about the top 6 bias criteria. You know, the PMGOL doesn't want it. Web doesn't want it. Like people just venting out their anger over it. When it was confirmed we got Europe, I think when it was more or less there where we were thinking, yeah, we're getting Europe, we would have bitten your arm off for Conference League. When we drew against City, I haven't celebrated like that since we've gone up. And I don't think I ever will again, because so many of our fans have still got up in our mindset about losing to 9-man Walsall at the Withdean, or getting ponchos handed out because there's no roof at the Withdean ground.
Wow.
We travelled to Hartlepool and back to see us lose like 3-0 away when we were winning League One. We had so many hilarious moments as a club. It's never been a dull day as a Brighton and Hove Albion fan, and I know that so many people say that about their respective club, but for me, it's just magnified by what is happening here. It means so much to the fans, and I think you're going to see how truly it means, because I don't think you're going to see, you know, 500, 1,000 fans traveling. You're going to see thousands of Brighton fans making the most out of the group stages in Europa League. The 1st of September is bookmarks for every single person, because the moment that draws come out and the fixtures come out, we're booking the day off just so that we could book all the flights and accommodation. Like we're planning everything out. The fact that Brighton Hove Albion are on a European tour,
crazy, isn't it?
It hasn't settled in for me yet. I'm still delirious from it. I was laughing.
You'll do well too, though. I think I think we'll probably end it on this shortly, but I will say I do think you'll do very well. And like, although I was talking about your demise before, I'm actually very confident for you next season. I really do believe that. I think if you invest well, I do think you do need to invest. I do think you can't just rely on your recruitment of, you know, these players from left, right, and centre. Although I'm sure I'll be eating my words next year. But bringing the Hood in from Dortmund, I think is a great sign. I think he'll do very well for you. He's a player Liverpool will be linked with plenty of times. I think 1 or 2 astute signings here and there.
James Milner.
James Milner. Listen, Jay, you'll see a lot of random slander about him on the timeline. Don't buy a word of it. He is genuinely nothing that Liverpool have achieved since Klopp came in would have happened without Milner.
Agreed.
Stand on that. I believe that. You've got a phenomenal leader. You've got someone who's still got a lot of quality in him. He knows, I'll tell you what, he knows how to time waste. But yeah, if you're 1-0 up or you're playing for a draw, there is no better player to bring on the pitch. You'll get a yellow card. I'll tell you this, by the way. Get ready. Get used to this, right? If you're bringing him off the bench, Ben knows this. Every Liverpool fan knows this. No matter how long's left. Smashing someone, right?
Straight
he's getting a yellow card, and then he's holding it in the corner, right? 2 things are guaranteed, right? Don't know why he does it or how he does it, because we could be winning 6-0 and he's going to get a yellow card, and he's going to hold it. My
personal favourite, by the way, just interrupted when they absolutely smashed Neymar. That was one of
that was so funny. That was just so good.
Like, nah, I don't care who you are, you're getting smashed. Absolutely battered him. But
he'll be great. Right. I love it.
Yeah,
absolutely love it.
Tom, we're gonna wrap up with you, mate. But just before you go, do you want to shout out where people can find you? Teams like Brighton.
Yeah, guys, if you want to hear about me rambling on about the Albion next season, be sure to like and subscribe to Teams Like Brighton's podcast on YouTube, or you can follow it on whatever you listen on your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, the works. And if you fancy just hearing me ramble on about the world of football and sports, at Tom J Phillips _ is my Twitter handle. Be sure to send me a DM or send me a chat what my thoughts are. More than happy to have a conversation.
Absolutely. And in previous streams, I've briefly mentioned preview shows for next season, which are going to come to the channel, and Tom has agreed to be the Brighton rep. So, you know, you will see Tom on the channel at least 2 more times, hopefully no more than that, because I don't want to play you in a cup again after my experience away at the Amex last season. But Tom, once again, mate, a massive thank you for coming on, providing such a great insight on the Mac Allister. And yeah, we wish you all the best for the season, mate.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, and all the best.
All the best, mate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so that was brilliant, wasn't it? Just like I said before, I would have been able to give a very limited insight onto Mac Allister, but just getting somebody like Tom, who's, you know, seen him, like I said before, grow from a boy into a top, you know, player, it's far better, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, he's fantastic then as well. I thought his insight was just second to none. It was also good to hear just some reassurances that how good he was, how good he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you'll get agendas, won't you? People will start putting him down. That we get it all the time in Liverpool. We sign a player, and then you get these people that say, "Oh, but I want this player." It's like, you know
you can't
what?
hack it.
No, exactly. But guys, I did tweet out we are going to start talking about transfers, and there has been a significant amount of people just join the stream, so I'm not going to delay it any further. Let's get straight into the rest of the news that came out today. I didn't want to bore Tom with this because he doesn't really want to.
He doesn't care. He doesn't
talk
care.
about Kefram, Thuram, and players like that. But yeah, pretty much as soon as the Mac Allister news came out, we had some more information from Fabrizio and Paul Joyce. Wait, that's not the right one. Even though his medical is tomorrow.
However, look at his face.
Apparently,
what a beautiful man.
So yeah. Although Tom was saying that there are some clauses and stuff that may still have to be agreed, you don't book a medical in for somebody if you haven't agreed with those clauses and stuff. So
not at all.
Yeah. This was from Fabrizio straight after he did his Here We Go, or a little bit later, actually. The release clause for Alexis Mac Allister is lower than the reported 45 to 50 million. This is why Liverpool feel that they could be a bargain, and they want to get the document signed this week, pretty much what we've just seen. And then there was this one. After Alexis Mac Allister with medical book this week, Liverpool will focus on more targets to rebuild the midfield. Conversations took place with the agents of Manu Kone and Kefram Thuram. Gabri Vega appreciated, but no bid or talks advancing yet, step by step. And David Lynch says Borussia Mönchengladbach's Manu Kone and Nice's Kefram Thuram are understood to feature on Liverpool's targets, with the contact already being made with the reps of both players. And Mike, this is just, for me, amazing news because, again, we've heard Klopp for the last 3-4, maybe not 3-4 months, but at least the last 2 months, speak on business in the summer. He's been asked about it all the time, and he's always said, we will spend money in the summer, which it looks like we are going to. And then more recently, he's gone on to say, yeah, we want to do our business early. So when you see these, very respected journalists, especially the ones for our club, David Lynch, Paul Joyce has said some sort of similar updates as well, drop those names. Surely it is those names at this stage where we're thinking, you know what, maybe we could do something there.
Yeah, listen, I think I speak for most Liverpool fans. I'm incredibly excited by the players we're being linked with. Like, incredibly excited. I think they bring a profile that we haven't had at the club for a while, or at least a profile that I'd say we're normally very low in quality, low in that bracket of. The idea of Thuram, he's just physically so imposing in midfield. I don't remember that, other than Fabinho. How many times we had a midfielder above 6'1"? I don't remember it. I know that sounds silly, but just think, when was the last physically imposing centre mid that we had? I struggle. I go all the way back to Sissoko.
What was Emery? Emery, was he that big?
And maybe Emre Can, 6'1". He might have been 6'1", 6'2". But the idea of a physically imposing midfielder, other than Fabinho, I think that's massive for us. Technically gifted, young, not the price should matter, but the fact that we're getting them, we could potentially get them for the price that we'd be looking at. Thuram's 45, 50. Stefan in the comments. Yes, okay, no, that's a good point. He didn't make an impact in the team, really, but yeah, we did.
I saw him score a worldy header against Barcelona at Wembley in a preseason friendly, but that was about it.
What a moment. But so I think it's exciting, is it not? And I'll be honest, I don't know much about the Gabri Vega, the guy that we've been linked with. I don't know much about him. I definitely know more about Kone than any of the other midfielders. But listen, if we can sign Kone and Thuram, come on. What were you thinking about Kone?
It was a bit weird for me because Paul Joyce didn't mention Kone. The others did, but Paul Joyce, who is our god of transfer news, he mentioned Thuram. He mentioned, in fact, I don't want to get this wrong. He mentioned Thuram. He mentioned Gravenberch, and he mentioned one more. But he didn't mention Kone, which is interesting for me. I think it may have been Gabri Vega, because I'm not saying, if Paul Joyce doesn't say this player doesn't mean we won't sign him, but it's weird that he's going so heavy on Thuram now. I think that's the second or third time he's mentioned him.
Yep.
And look, we all want 3 or 4 players. We all want more midfielders to come in. Lavia, Stefan says, yeah, he mentioned Lavia. That was it. But do you honestly see us in your heart of hearts signing Kone and Thuram? both?
I think when we look at the profiles of the players that we're linked with again. So Gravenberch, right? So we use Gravenberch and Thuram. I believe they're in the same list. I think if we're looking at another 8 to play on the left hand side, and we're looking at 6s. I think in the list of 8s for the left hand side, Gravenberch and Thuram are in the same list because they're both such a similar profile. I don't think that's a coincidence. Both technically gifted, physically imposing, and they're progressors of the ball. It's the identical profile with what maybe a year apart in age. So I think that isn't a surprise. I don't think that's surprising to me at all. I think when I look at the 6, you look at Kone, you look at Lafia. They're the 2 names that we've heard the most. As I say, I don't know much about this Gabri fella. I don't know. I really don't know. So I don't know what list he'd be in. But I do believe that we have a list of 6s and a list of 8s that we want. And I can see us signing one from each. Now, will it be Kone and Thuram? I don't know. That would be my personal preference. I wouldn't mind, don't get me wrong, if we got Thuram and Lafia or Lafia Gravenberch, there's no bad combination of these 4 players. There really isn't. They're all top quality, top talented. They'll adapt to our system well. They're all young. They're all, don't have injury records that are, terrifying. They all fit the profile of what we need, and we'd be able to get them all in some form of combination of the 2 for reasonable prices. And I think that's, so I do think we'll sign 2 of those 4 players from, you know what I mean? Do you believe we'll sign a 6 and an 8? What do you think?
Yeah, I do believe we will, but I don't know. I just don't know if we'll sign coming down for I just think there's something there for me where we won't sign them both. I think for a start, I think Thuram's going to be very I think it's already been reported that one's going to be more complex to get him because that's going to be more of around the 50, 55 million mark you'd have thought. Kone seems to be a bit of a bargain for whoever gets him. I know Chelsea are interested as well. There are a few clubs that are going to be in for him. So it's just weird to me that it's kind of thrown me a bit how everyone else mentioned Kone but Paul Joyce, and Paul Joyce mentioned Thuram and all the others did. So I think certainly there must be some sort of, okay, yeah, let's try get Thuram now. And I think, to be completely honest, he's probably the one that most fans would probably lean towards if it was one or the other. But
why do you think that is?
Prices, I'm not sure. I just think it's because of that whole right-hand side of midfield. And again, I've not watched many Lille games. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watch Lille on my Saturdays. But from what I have seen of Thuram, I've described him as a cheat code. He looks like he can bring you that defensive work, which Henderson used to do at right centre mid. But also going forward, he's as good as anyone. So I just feel like for the way we play, you bring him in, you bring Mac Allister in. Yeah, we probably still need another DM, but is that going to give Fabinho some sort of a boost? I certainly think it would. I'm not saying that Fabinho is going to be back to his normal self. I'm not saying we don't need a DM, but if Mac Allister and Thuram were the 2 we signed, I think that's a brilliant start to the rebuild, and none of us know what's going to happen next. There could be somebody secret that they've not announced yet, somebody that no journalist knows of, because that's usually what happens.
Yeah, but that's why I don't think he's mentioned Kone, because I think when you look at the UK journalists, for the most part, when it comes to our signings, although maybe Fabrizio obviously will mention it every several hours, go get that engagement. But it's you know what I mean, when it comes to Paul Joyce, when it comes to our ones, they don't mention it until it's days away. Paul Joyce wasn't talking about Alexis Mac Allister until it was ahead. You know what I mean? After until everyone else had reported it. It wouldn't surprise me if it's the same for Kone, because there'll be embargoes that are put on these journalists. Don't talk about these. Talk about these. Don't talk about these. Talk about these. These are the kind of things that happen behind closed doors. I do think Kone, from what I've been reading, from what we all hear in the zeitgeist, I think Kone and Thuram are the 2. Yeah, I think Latvia's a backup, and I think Gravenberch might be more complex than people realize, because you've got to lure him away from Bayern Munich.
I'm not mad at those at all.
No,
those
neither.
Gravenberch is probably the one that I'd want the least, just because I don't think he's kicked on from what we thought he was going to be.
He'd be the hardest work to adapt. He would be.
Yeah, but Lavia, apart from his assists against us in the final day of the season, I was massively impressed with him. But guys, before we just wrap things up, I just need you guys to check out Born and Red's channel. There's 52 guys in here. Born and Red, amazing channel, big friends of the Anfield Talk, and they're doing a show in just over an hour at 9 o'clock. If you want to hear more Alexis Mac Allister chat from people who are much more clever than myself, make sure you check them out. Make sure you drop them a subscription, like the content, and Dory says Dream Summer, Mac Allister, Thuram, Kone, Inacio, Van der Ven. I mean, that's a 10 out of 10 window, isn't it, Mike?
I mean, that's a 20 out of 10 window. You buying 2 centre backs and 3 midfielders, brother. I have a dream, right? I have a dream of that, but I don't see it happening.
unless George has got some absolutely sensational jokes lined up, and he's
probably stand up Dave Chappelle over here. He's going to need to be to get that done. My God,
what a guy.
Oh.
Footy Boy says, I watched him yesterday versus Barca. He scored 2 goals. And I can tell you guys he was amazing, and he's a similar player to Mac. I actually, I'm not going to sit there and say I watched the Spanish league, but from what I've seen, from what I've read, from the clips I've seen of him, I feel like he's a bit of a Jude Bellingham sort of guy. That's the vibes I've been getting from him when I've watched him play.
Describe that more.
Yeah, from what I've seen, he looks like when he gets the ball, he's got that burst of pace to take it forward. He will defend. He will get back. He'll cover ground. He work hard. He brings that attacking threat. I don't know. I just feel like from the very I only watch Liverpool, right? Liverpool is the only team I give a flying damn about. I don't care about anybody else. So I've not watched him across 90 minutes. But again, when we are linked with players, I'm not lazy. I do like to go and look them up and see what they're about. So from what I have seen of him, he seems to fit that sort of Jude Bellingham sort of style. I don't know if it's just me or if somebody else that knows about this player a lot more than me can expand on that. But they were the vibes I was getting. And I even put a tweet out in March where if we missed out on Jude Bellingham, I wouldn't be surprised if we went for this guy because he's got a low release clause. Probably low wages, probably talking for his first Liverpool contract, 80 grand or something like that. So it does make sense if they think he's good enough.
You've got the lad from Leipzig as well. So the lad from Leipzig, and listen, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. Everyone knows who I'm on about. Thank you. I'm still not going to say it because you can say it better than me. But we know who I'm on about, all right? Everyone in the chat knows who I'm on about. He seems to want to move. He desperately seems to want to move to the Premier League from what I've read. And from his interview he gave recently, he definitely seems to be a fan of Liverpool. And then you kind of tie that in with the link that Carvalho has been linked with Leipzig. And it does add more validity as to why we might be a bit more open to letting him go. Because I've seen it in the past with us when we do a transfer, we let a player go to a club, and then about 3 days later to a week, we go and buy a player from that club. Jota's a prime example of it. We let a young lad go. We let a young lad go in Hoover, and we ended up signing Jota within the next day.
And if we announce a friendly with Leipzig as well for the summer, then we're cooking.
Yeah, it looks like that could be something we try and do in negotiation. It's not the first time we've done it. I can see if Carvalho, we rejected 10 million for Carvalho. If people haven't seen that, we rejected the 10 million pound bid supposedly from Leipzig. We signed him for 6.
About that, yeah. I think it was some sort of tribunal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a tribunal price. And I imagine we're probably going to be leaning to 15 if we can get it. So you think 15 mil off this lad's price tag, that then comes a bit of a 30-ish mil for another player that can play in that final third?
Yeah, and Fabrizio, whilst we've been on air, he has said that we have rejected a bid for him and Liverpool don't want to lose him on a permanent deal, but a buyback option could be a solution. So that is certainly one to keep an eye on. It seems like he's a player we don't want to let go permanently. But if the reports that he isn't in Klopp's plans, which is what we've been told over the last week, are true, why would you, if that is a player that we're after, why would you not try and use that as a bargaining chip? You know what I mean? So that is an interesting one, to be fair. And guys, keep getting your comments in. We are going to wrap things up now, but make sure you smash the like button and subscribe because, like I say, we're on the road to 2K. We hit a K recently, and that is, massive achievement for us. We've been working all season to get that milestone, and we've got it now. So we're just trying to push things on. Not going to say too much for now, but we have got a new sponsor coming up very soon. We're just getting that over the line as well for the podcast. So good things are coming to the show, man. We're going to do preview shows. Tom's going to be back next season to discuss Liverpool versus Brighton as well. So I know a lot of you guys in the comments probably enjoyed Tom's segment. And if you're just joining this now for the transfer talk, go back to the start because Tom gave us an absolutely phenomenal insight to Mac Allister, the player that we are getting, the person that he is, and even some sort of clauses into the contract, which some people might not be aware of. So guys, thank you for tuning in. If you made it to this part, we really, really appreciate it. The support that you guys give us on YouTube, on Twitter, it never goes unnoticed. We see you guys all the time. So, make sure you got your notifications on for more streams for when we sign more players. And we'll see you next time, guys. Take care and goodbye.
Take care.